Joined by Dr. Sajjid Chinoy, Managing Director, Chief India Economist at JB Morgan. He's a member of that Economic Advisory Council. Neelkant Mishra, Research Analyst, Chief Economist, Axis Bank, Head of Global Research, Axis Capital, also joins us, also someone who's been part of that Economic Advisory Council. Thank you both very much for joining me at this moment. First to you, Sajjid, how are you reading what Donald Trump has gone and done today? A further 25% tariff. Are we heading into a very, very dangerous tariff war territory? Weaponization of tariffs by the US president? Your first reaction?
This is unfortunate that Mr. Trump has to come to these levels because, if you step back, Rajdeep, at some level, what's happened over the last few weeks with high tariffs in different countries is not surprising. We're seeing a dramatic transformation of the global trading order in the last 6 months under the Trump presidency. It's important to recognize that the effective tariff rates that the US has imposed on other countries, is now about 16%. And if Mr. Trump follows through on his promises, will go to 20%. This is the highest level of effective tariffs in the US since the 1930s under the Smoot-Hawley Act. So you're seeing a lot of global trade disruption with high tariffs in the US. As a result of which we're going to see, China dumping a lot of its excess capacity to other economies, And so if you're a country like India or other emerging markets, you're now facing the twin threat of a much more protectionist global economy, much more economic balkanization, and potentially a China shock 2.0, where all this manufacturing capacity from China, which was headed to the US, think of the US putting up a tariff wall like a dam. It kind of floods adjoining areas. So these are troubling times. These are worrying times. The hope is, however, and we've seen this in the case of other countries, that what Mr. Trump has done today is used as negotiating leverage. Remember, with China, the tariffs had gone to 145%. And then when things got dialed down, the tariff on China is 42%. Europe was threatened with a higher tariff and has come down. So let's hope that these tariffs only go into place 21 days from now, that over the next 3 weeks, some common ground can be found, and that today's announcements really are a negotiating strategy.
How do you see it, Neelkant Mishra, your first reactions to what Donald Trump has done really over the last 24 hours?
Well, I agree with Sajjid and some of your colleagues who were earlier speaking that this is a negotiating tactic. The pattern is that whenever you see negotiations stalling, where both sides have kind of drawn the red line, so we're not going to cross it. President Trump tends to escalate matters, and it's one of those, I'll hurt myself just to hurt you, and he'll keep escalating it till the time that both parties start talking and some red lines are breached. So I would use this as, I would see this as one of those measures. And remember that his own tactics keep changing. So it seemed when he came to power that he was going to do a reverse Nixon, that he was going to get closer to Russia so as to corner China. Now that he's seeing that he signaled, despite his art of the deal, he signaled too early that he was going to be pro-Russia. And so the Russians are demanding their own pound of flesh. And now he's trying to corner the Russians by getting closer to China and also pressuring India. So this is pure diplomacy. I don't think we should extrapolate this as tariffs, say 6 months down the line on India.
Very interesting, your viewpoint. Sajjid Chinoy, let's look at the economic impact, if any. Nomura has flagged a potential 0.2% point downside risk to growth. ICRA on Monday revised India's FY26 GDP growth forecast from 6.2% to 6%, citing US tariffs and uncertainty. What kind of impact do you see on Indian growth rates in the short and medium term?
Well, it's undeniable that there's going to be some impact on growth. The fact is about 2.3% of GDP of India's exports go to the US. The US is India's largest export destination. Having said that, 25% of those are exempt because they're pharmaceuticals, electronic goods. The value addition, one would argue, is even lower. So it's closer to about 1.2 or 1.3% of GDP in terms of what's value added that's exposed to the US. So there is going to be some impact, and that's inevitable. For me, however, the real issue is in the near term, if we can, over the next few weeks, try and reach some agreement with the US. If these 25% tariffs last for a month or so, I think India can absorb the hit given what's at risk. What we don't want to do is for this to linger on, for too long, because the real cost to the economy for me is not the impact on exports. The real cost really is that, until recently, India was being seen as a real viable China plus one alternative. 7 years ago, China plus one meant investments were going to ASEAN economies, the Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand. Now with those economies, in the crosshairs as well, they've been accused of transshipment. There's a sense that to really diversify away from China, you have to go to economies like India. So that is the real opportunity for India in all of this. So I think the balancing act here is that there could be a short-term cost. However, if we can use the next few weeks or the next couple of months to negotiate what we think is a fairer, more equitable deal, then we can avoid the larger cost, which for me is investment animal spirits, the signaling cost of India being an attractive, viable China plus one destination.
But how should Neelkant Mishra, India respond? There are those who've been talking about retaliatory tariffs. There are others who are saying allow for a cooling off period. There's also a view that maybe India should reduce some of its oil imports from Russia, which has become the sticking point for Donald Trump. How do you think what is the best way to respond according to you?
So the first thing first, buying oil from Russia, whatever President Trump may say or Western media may say, is not a very big advantage for India. In the sense that the gap between Brent crude, which is India's standard grade, and the Urals grade, which is what Russia exports generally, it used to be $30 in 2022. It fell to $20 in 24, $10 last year, and then about $5 right now. Landed price adjusted for the higher insurance, etc., is now $2 difference. So India is saving $1 or $2 billion a year. So I think this whole economic impact, and frankly, given that we were importing so little from Russia till 3 years back, switching back to other grades is maybe take a few months, but it's not really going to break the bank. So I don't think.
Are you saying that's what we should do, Dr. Mishra? Are you saying that we should sort of look to diversify beyond Russia?
I don't think President Trump even intends. I think this is just a ruse, in my view, to just get India back to the negotiating table. He wants an excuse. You must have seen that video that was circulating where he was asked that, look, you are also buying so much from Russia. And he said, yeah, I didn't know that. So the point is, he's, I think, deliberately raising the stakes so that trade negotiation can happen. I think we have to also see this as an opportunity on taking some hard decisions which we had earlier been unwilling to take, because, frankly, it is pressure like this where you feel isolated, which brings the country together. And so if there are tough economic decisions that need to be taken, I think those decisions, perhaps this is an opportunity for us to undertake reform, build more domestic demand, accelerate monetary transmission. So there are many economic measures. Frankly, I believe that the path to 6.5-7% sustained growth over the next 3 to 5 years lies purely in the domestic markets, and this may need diplomacy, different types of levers to be pulled. Frankly, it is not just an economic discussion. So I would suggest that we use this opportunity to dial down or dial up on the domestic reform process and take some tough economic decisions which actually rate on a higher pedestal going forward.
Interesting. Sajjid Chinoy, your view, should we be doing what the Brazilians are doing at the moment, virtually looking Mr. Trump in the eye, what the Chinese are doing, who are also holding firm? Is that the way to deal with Donald Trump and hope that he will back off? Or should India sort of retaliate? What's your view?
No, I don't think it's wise to go in for retaliatory tariffs. I think the first thing is to understand what it is that Mr. Trump wants, because what we've seen over the last few weeks is a moving target. The original ask was that India's tariff levels are high and India should reduce tariffs. Now the ask is, well, we should buy less Russian crude, and that's ostensibly why the additional tariffs have gone in. Well, I think, someone also has to explain to the US team that India imports 1.7 million barrels from Russia. If we were to slowly diversify away from Russia, the macroeconomic impact on India is modest. The current account is extremely benign. Inflation is low. The premium or the discount that we get from Russia is only about $4 or $5 a barrel. So the impact on India from moving away from Russian purchases to other countries is not large. But we mustn't forget the general equilibrium impact. If India stops buying 1.7 million barrels from Russia, right, and supply doesn't increase commensurately, and there's no reason to believe why it will. I don't think either US shale production or US or OPEC can increase supply to that extent. Then global crude prices will rise dramatically, and that's going to affect everybody adversely, most of all the US consumer. So I think the idea should be, what is it that the Americans want at this point in time? How can we, with cooler heads, with wiser counsel on the US side, reach a win-win situation? Trade is all about win-win. There are deals to be had where, India can use this opportunity to bring some import tariffs down, which will help Indian consumers, can use this opportunity to reform, and the US will get something as this. So if we can find a win-win, I think that would be the advisable end game. For now, I think, we need a cooling off period where hopefully things can de-escalate.
It's interesting. Both of you are actually seeing an opportunity in what Donald Trump is doing, particularly to reform. You have a specific reform, Dr. Chinoy, if I may ask, which you could see as an opportunity amidst all this noise of tariff war, a specific area?
So, the budget, the economic survey earlier this year had passionately called for deregulation. The budget had announced the Deregulation Commission. The Prime Minister has spoken about this a few times. This would be a wonderful way to actually announce a Deregulation Commission, and, with a broad mandate to actually say that we want to genuinely ease the cost of doing business in India, because the signal we want to send, Rajdeep, I mean, the whole point of this trade deal, the reason we have a deal with the UK, the reason we want to have a deal with the US, the reason we want to have a deal with the Euro area, is to give the sense that India is very much open for business. And if you relocate in India and manufacture over here and create jobs over here, you will have a frictionless access to global markets. Now, in addition to that frictionless access, what is attractive to foreign companies and domestic companies is that, setting up firms, starting firms, doing business is more costless. And so I think the Deregulation Commission, for one, or for example, actually implementing the labor laws, we can go ahead with privatization, which will send a powerful reform signal and generate fiscal resources to buffer the impact of this the US tariff. There are any number of reforms one can think of. This would be an opportune moment. Our history is littered with examples where adverse global shocks have induced more reforms at home.
Interesting the way both of you are putting it. Neelkanth Mishra, Dr. Mishra, you mentioned Donald Trump's reaction at that press conference. I just want to play what he was asked. When he was asked about America importing from Russia, what did he have to say when that question was asked in the context of uranium? Listen in and I'll come to you, Dr. Mishra, in a moment.
India says that the US imports Russian uranium, chemicals, fertilizers, while criticizing their energy imports. Your response to that, sir?
I don't know anything about it. I'd have to check, but we'll get back to you on that. Yeah, please.
Should we then be exposing American double standards, you believe, Dr. Mishra, or just stay out of that and focus, as you said, on just getting our act together when it comes to reform so that we are more prepared for this more uncertain world around us?
No, absolutely. And I think as we think about even the US-India relationship, remember that it is going to be a complex relationship. As you look at what the US is doing to Canada, look at what it is doing to Mexico, look at what it was trying to do to the UK before they finally sort of bent the knee and came to an agreement. It is, as the diplomats say, we have to forget the binaries. So there will be, the day where the 25% tariffs were announced, the newspaper headlines right next to that had the launch of NISAR, which is ISRO and NASA working together. As you talk to some of the US diplomats in India, there is a very deep-rooted commitment to helping India get access to the right technologies, shore India's stature up, build India's economy. And it may be selfish, but at this stage, that commitment is very deep-rooted. So to use this and start getting into a street fight and, oh, you punched me, I'm going to counter-punch you. I think stable heads, calm heads, think about what is it that what has triggered this decision, and try to address it, see what concessions can be given, and come to a transaction. Come to make a deal. And therefore,
do we have the kind of leverage? Do we have the kind of leverage, Dr. Mishra, to do that kind of deal, a comprehensive deal? Let's say China has greater leverage with the US. Do we have any kind of leverage, you believe, with the US to strike a broader trade deal?
Look, if you want to look for leverage, you can look for leverage. You can get a lot of leverage. There are many things that, for example, India supplies 50% of drugs by volume to the US. You stop shipments, they may have 3-4 months of inventory. I think the US will start running out of medicine. So, frankly, we shouldn't be even thinking of going down that path. I don't think this is a sign of a strategic break from India. This is, as I said, a ruse, a stratagem to break a deadlock in the trade negotiations. And so we have to treat it like that. I don't think going down we will block rare earths. Frankly, if you think about it, 50% of drugs by volume come from India in the US. And they don't want to go to China. I don't think there's any other place where you can make drugs at that volume. The fact that we are not even thinking of those things is a very important factor, and I don't think we need to go down that path.
Okay, so I think we've got two economists telling us very, very clearly, fine economic minds telling us, play it cool, be focused, and importantly, use this as an opportunity to fix our own economy and bring in the crucial reforms that we need for our own growth rates at the moment. I appreciate Dr. Neelkant Mishra and Dr. Sajjid Chinoy both of you for joining me here at the top of the news.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.